All right, the Giants have officially informed Mike linebacker Bobby Okereke that they will be releasing him. He's going to become John Harbaugh's first cap casualty. There are a lot of moves to be made this upcoming free agency, y'all. So let's break them all down. All the reports with SNY's NFL reporter, Connor Hughes. Connor, thanks for hopping on with us, man. A lot of these reports you reported and broke. So glad to have the man behind the tweet on with us. Let's start with Okereke. He got the word he's going to be released. That was expected because it's going to save them around, $9 million on the cap. From what you heard, though, was that more of a cap casualty thing or a scheme fit in new defensive coordinator Denard Wilson's defense? And how do you think they're going to fill that gap, free agency or the draft?
Yeah, Brent, I think when you look at Bobby, there was a significant decline in play since his first year with the Giants. I know the tackle numbers show a high level of productivity, but he didn't have the same physicality. He didn't have the same burst. And ultimately, it's a position that the Giants believe they can improve on potentially in the draft there with Sonny Styles. But this was more, I think, of a player on the decline who was not necessarily worth the number that was associated with him. And ultimately, the Giants need to clear cap space. I mean, that's something they needed to do. They were set to begin the new league year with just under $2 million. And with a team coming off the year like they had, I know they have hype with Jackson Dart, but they need to find a way to increase that number. So Okereke was the most obvious one. He won't be the only one. Devin Singletary, I'm sure, is going to get cut here. Graham Gano is another one who can free a chunk. The interesting ones, I think, are the guys that are still starters for the Giants, where if you cut them, you need to replace them. Jon Runyan, another player with a significant amount of money that's going to be free, just under $10 million or so, 9.5, 9.6, I think it is, very similar to what Okereke was. But if you cut Runyan, you have to replace him. And is there a guard that's going to give you the same level of production at a price tag that's going to be less? Because ultimately, that's what you're looking for.
All right, so when Jordan Renan had tweeted and reported that there are going to be significant moves made, then these are some of those significant moves that are going to happen, and they're going to free up that money. You reported that the Giants are interested in Seahawks running back and Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. Now, freeing up that money could help bring him in because his price tag is going to be high coming off that Super Bowl run. Mm-hmm. So, but what if someone were to say to you that they didn't pay Saquon around $12 million 2 off seasons ago? Why would they pay Walker more this off season? What would be your response to that?
That's a fair argument. It is. And you mentioned Jordan. You got to give Jordan some credit. He was actually the first one that broke that Walker news. And when he first said it, I was like, no way. And then you dig a little bit more. It's like, no, the Giants are absolutely in on the Kenneth Walker sweepstakes. Now, most people that I talk to around the NFL believe that ultimately he's going to return to the Seattle Seahawks. But you need to look at what this tells you the Giants are trying to do. They are not pursuing somebody like Walker. They are not heavily involved in the interior offensive line market like they are in free agency, the tight end market like they are in free agency, if they don't have that identity, or that identity that they want to have is beginning to take shape. This is going to be a team under John Harbaugh, Greg Roman also on staff, that wants to run some more, and Walker would be a big way in accomplishing that, pairing him with Cam Scatterbo and also Tyrone Tracy to create a pretty decent three-headed rushing attack there, where you've got some of the lightning there with Walker, then the thunder with Cam Scatterbo, and a little bit of electricity as well, or additional electricity there with Tracy. Now, the Saquon argument is going to be there. Now, the Giants, when they let Barkley go, I don't think they were necessarily in a place where they were going to compete. They weren't as far along in their rebuild, and they still have a long ways to go now than they were there. But that's going to be the argument to be made, and it's a valid one. There really is no excuse, but it also kind of falls back with what the Giants have done previously, because they let Xavier McKinney go only to sign Javon Holland a little bit later.
So if let's say Kenneth Walker re-signs with the Seahawks, like you said that he might, Travis Etienne, could he be in play?
He could. I don't know if that one is as hot and heavy as maybe the Walker pursuit is. I think Walker is somebody that the Giants identify as a unique player available. Because here's the thing about, and Brandon, this is the thing about free agency, and actually Adam Gase was the one that told me this many, many years ago with the Jets, is that when this isn't groundbreaking news, but when you analyze free agency, the vast majority of those players are B-tier players, C-tier players, and D-tier players whom their teams let go for an obvious reason. And they end up getting paid a tier higher because they are free agents. So you find teams that aren't usually very well run The Ravens, absolutely not in this class at all, which is where John Harbaugh cut his teeth, obviously, where you have a B-tier player receiving an A-tier contract, or a C getting a B, or a D getting a C. And that's where teams get in trouble because their financial resources aren't allocated appropriately. Every now and then you have a player that hits free agency that is deemed that true A tier, which for whatever funky reason they're let go. When Adam Gase was describing this to me years ago was CJ Mosley. This was a player that the Jets went hard to go get because it was a very rare situation where an A tier player was actually there to be signed. Kenneth Walker, Tyler Linderbaum, these are guys who are perceived as A tier players who are out there to get. So I think this is more of a unique situation with Walker than it is the Giants saying, oh my goodness, let's just load up the backfield with whoever we can get. Where, they take the money that if Walker goes back to Seattle, so they were willing to pay him $13-14 million annually and give it to somebody else. I don't necessarily see that happening.
The Giants have 3 of their A-tier players that are pending free agents. And when I say A-tier, I mean you're an A-tier player on a 4 and 13 team. You've got wan'dale Robinson, Cordell Flott, and Jermaine Illuminor. Who do you think stays and who goes out of those 3?
Yeah, Brandon, that's the biggest mistake that a lot of fans make, is that you fall in love with players on a team that's not very good and then over-evaluate and inflate their actual value to a team. And you see it all the time in basketball and certainly things like that. And then they go somewhere else. You're like, oh, they were kind of mid, weren't they? I don't necessarily think that's the case, though, here with Flott, Illuminor, and Robinson. These are players who are generating significant buzz on the open market. With Jermaine Illuminor, the Arizona Cardinals really, really like him. Wan'dale Robinson has the Tennessee Titans all over him. And with Flott, this is a player that many executives that I spoke with and many talent evaluators that I spoke with at the Combine believe is a budding, I don't want to say superstar, but a legitimate top-tier player in this league that hasn't yet scratched the surface of what he can do. The example I'd use is DJ Reed. When he joined the Jets and suddenly he evolved into this player that was a legitimate cornerstone piece in their secondary for a while, and in some cases maybe even their best corner. And yes, that includes Sauce Gardner. DJ Reed was that good, even though he didn't necessarily arrive in New York with that fanfare. I could see Flott having a similar trajectory if he goes somewhere else, and because of that, a lot of teams view that the same way. He might get priced out of the Giants, what the Giants can pay. In fact, Robinson's another one where everybody that I've talked to around the league at the moment thinks it's going to be very challenging for the Giants to bring him back because of how hot and heavy the Titans are all over him. Illuminor is the one that I do think ultimately returns, but again, when the open market hits and if the other tackles that are in front of him maybe sign for big money and suddenly a team gets crazy and needs to spend, that's when I could see maybe Illuminor losing too. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that the Giants lose all 3. I think likely, though, they're to lose 2 of the 3, and the one coming back could be Jermaine.
I mean, if you go with it, that could be wan'dale Robinson, Cordell Flott, Bobby Okereke, Graham Gano, John Runyon. Like you said, there was a lot of starters that could be out. So who are some free agents that are out there that you think or are hearing that the Giants can go after to kind of fill those holes? Because like you said, those are starters that they're losing.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker is the one that we were talking about a little bit ago. Tyler Linderbaum as well. The problem with Linderbaum, though, Brandon, is that I talked to a team that actually spoke with his representatives. The asking price for him begins with a 2, meaning a minimum of $20 million annually, and that was just to begin talks. That has absolutely exceeded that. So he's set to reset the center market by 25% this year, which is going to be absolutely crazy. But I know that fans love free agency, and it's an exciting time, especially when you're coming off a 3- and 4-win season. But if you look at what John Harbaugh has done throughout his tenure with the Ravens, his teams were never built through free agency. They were supplemented in free agency and built through the draft. So I do believe that you're going to see the Giants potentially, aside from Walker, if that happens, and again, I have my doubts that it actually does, I think you're going to see them standing back from the top tier of free agents and dabbling more in that second and third wave, just because those are where you're going to find more value. That's where you're going to find your interior offensive linemen. That's where you're going to find players that maybe haven't necessarily broken through, but are about to break through and could potentially be real helps for this team. Because the core of the Giants, as long as Harbaugh is here, it's going to be built through the draft.
All right. Obviously, we have to see what they're going to do in free agency, but with the draft right around the corner, do you think that Sonny Styles is a lock at number 5? And how do you think the first round for the Giants plays out for them on draft night, you think there's a chance they could possibly trade back into the first round for a guy that they really like?
Lock is hard. So lock is a tough one to say now. We haven't gotten through pro days. We haven't gotten through free agency. It's hard to say that one, but I can tell you they like him. You know, there was a lot of media hype there towards the end of the NFL Combine, and I was curious if it was just fodder, you know, put out there like, oh, look how good Sonny Styles is. What's the earliest he can go 5? Look, John Harbaugh has drafted linebackers before. Fan the flames and get it up there. But when I actually started digging on this one, it was pretty obvious this is real. The Giants very much value Styles. They love Styles. And Dan Duggan put this out on The Athletic, is that he pointed out the number of linebackers who have played for John Harbaugh during his time there. Obviously, he inherited Ray Lewis, but you go down the line of C.J. Mosley and some of these other players, and they are either high-profile signings or high-profile draft picks in the first round. So I know positional value is a buzzword in the NFL, and everyone likes to talk about it for good reason. But Harbaugh very clearly wants good football players, and the Giants, coming off the last couple years that they need good football players. So I would absolutely not rule Styles out there at number 5, despite the fact that he's a linebacker. I think Downs would surprise me a little bit more at 5 if that happens. Not saying it wouldn't. Again, there's going to be so much more information available in 2 weeks and 3 weeks and a month than what's available right now. But that's somebody also to keep an eye on. And receiver, because I think the big question here right now with Brandon is that if the Giants lose wan'dale Robinson to the Tennessee Titans, and we don't know what Malik Neighbors is going to look like in training camp or this season coming off those knee surgeries, you're going to need something else, because there really isn't that much on the roster that you can rely on, especially when you have a quarterback going into year 2 where you want to surround him with talent to maximize his potential. So whether that's Tate, whether that's Tyson, whether that's Lemon from USC, there's a number of different directions the Giants can go there at 5.
Does it make sense for them to go after Alec Pierce from the Colts in free agency then?
Yeah,
if you're
it
thinking
does.
Sonny Styles at 5.
Absolutely, because I think absolutely. I mean, because that one is an example of a player that complements other players.
Yeah,
so you're still going to need a slot. But Pierce is a stretch the field, go deep, take the top off the defense, and somebody who's still really coming on as a route runner and an all-around receiver. And you can have him as your complement to Malik Neighbors. And you look at some of the best teams around the NFL, Brandon, they don't run 1 deep at receiver. It's 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, their high-profile offense. You look at what the Philadelphia Eagles in the division are there with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, although Brown might be traded this offseason. You need a couple weapons there. You need a couple playmakers. And if the Giants were able to get that one done, that's absolutely something I think they should pursue. The thing with Pierce, though, he wants to go back to the Colts. Them tagging Daniel Jones was a big way to get him to the Colts because of their relationship together. Okay. And if he does hit free agency, it's going to be a costly signing. Again, the starting asking price with him was $25 million. And leaving the Combine, that figure was a lot higher than what it was entering the Combine with the sheer number of teams that are interested in him.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put him on layaway then and have to give me a wide receiver in the draft on that one. 25 for Alec Pierce. I like what he does. I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can justify that spending that on the bank account right there. But Connor, man, this is great, bro. Appreciate you hopping on with us today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.